Hey everyone, Dan at Ochiko Bushcraft. Well, this is a little bit different look than you've ever seen from me before. But today I want to talk to you about tactical survival. We don't need to get into the scenario, whatever you want to imagine it to be. And everything's gone sideways situation, whatever. But what I've done is back under those trees over there, I have a poncho shelter set up and completely camouflaged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of reverse engineer it for you guys. I'm going to take you over there and show you how it looks all set up. Woodpeckers waking up this morning. It's early. So I'm going to show you how I got it all set up. And then I'm going to take it apart and pull it out here in the open so I can show you just basically how it is constructed under the trees, because if I try to film constructing it under the trees, there's so many limbs, so many boughs, and so many shadows and things in the way. I don't think you guys will be able to get a good view. So we're going to reverse engineer it. So first, let's go over here and check it out. Okay, so let's talk about my surroundings. Now I'm in the Ochiko Mountains. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for some trees that would give me lots of overhead cover and cover around the sides. So basically my best option in the Ochikos is to find some fir trees that have a lot of boughs. So that's what I've got here. I've actually got a tall fir tree with a shorter fir tree growing underneath it. So I've got high overhead cover from above. And then down low, where the smaller tree is branching out, I've got cover from the sides. Now you're going to have to go with your own terrain. If you live in a hardwood forest, for example, you're going to have completely different kinds of trees and stuff. But this is how I would do this in the Ochikos. So walking around the side here, the parts of the tarp that would have been showing on this back side, I just got a few extra fir boughs, some pine needles, and natural materials, and threw those over the back side of the tarp. So the whole back side is covered. All right. So here's a look from the front. And by the way, to you guys on the camo, yes, I would do my neck and my arms and hands and have everything blacked out if I was really trying to stay tactical out here. This was just for the video to give you kind of an idea, and I would blacken more around my eyes too, but I needed to be able to see the camera. So right here under the trees you can see my tarp, or I mean my poncho. I'm sorry if I said tarp earlier, I apologize. My poncho, and I did a review on that for you guys just a little bit ago, the Act Fire poncho. It's the same one. I've got it set up into a plow point in here. Let's move inside and I'll try to give you some of the details of what I've done, and then we'll pull it out underneath maybe a fallen tree so I can just show you how quick and easy the setup is. So let's go up underneath first. Okay, so up underneath the tree, so we're underneath now, we're surrounded by the boughs. They're all around us on the outside. You can see the plow point shape. I just have it tied off to the tree right here, just a simple overhand knot, and spread out into a nice plow point. So I can put pine needles, fir boughs, sleeping mat under here. So I've basically got triple protection from the elements. I have a big tree that's creating shelter over the top of this small tree that's creating shelter over the top of the tarp. So I'm very, very protected from, rain, for example, and well protected from the wind too. The wind usually blows up the canyon, so I'm protected from tree boughs and by the poncho. Now, I don't know if you guys can see if I can point at that with a stick. Right back here is the hood, and I'll show you this when we get it out of here. But I've rolled the hood up with a little piece of wood inside of it, tied some bank line around it, and pulled that up to a branch. So I have more room underneath here. I can get underneath here and have a little bit more room for my legs and gear if I want to pull a backpack or something in here with me. The other thing that I did, just turn you guys here for a second. You can see where it's staked down in the corner. All of my stakes are covered with handfuls of pine needles. I just take a handful of pine needles after I stake it down and put those. So there's nothing standing out. My tent stakes, now I could have carved tent stakes, but even then I'd throw some pine needles over them. But I just used little metal ones that I had with me, threw some pine needles over. Again, took a walk around the outside like we just did. In any place that the tarp was exposed, I put in a few extra fir boughs, and then all around the bottom of the back I threw pine needles and just natural ground materials. So from the outside, as you saw, it just blends in completely with the environment. So again, what you're looking for is something, and fir trees are awesome out here. You can walk just a short distance and find another one just like this. A fir tree that's got a lot of boughs spread out around the bottom, so it's going to give you really good overhead cover and cover all the way around the sides. Get your materials, like for example some additional fir boughs. Don't get them from real close. Walk away from your area and bring them back so there's not signs of a fresh cut close to your shelter. Bring back what you need. Just use whatever's natural, plant material, and pine needles, leaves, whatever, to fill in and cover up anything that makes it look exposed walking around. And then other than that, don't disturb the area. Don't go out here and build a fire pit or a bushcraft chair or anything that somebody might see if they're walking through. So I'm going to break this down, pull it out into the open, and just show you how quick and easy we put this together. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and just use this bent over tree out here in the open to show you what I did up there under the cover of the fir trees. And again, the reason is there's so many boughs and so many shadows and things. I want you guys to be able to see how I set that up in there. So basically, first thing I did was get inside and looked around, and there was a couple dead, sharp dead branches poking down, and I got rid of those so that I had an open space inside. And then I just took, this is the Act Fire Poncho, comes in multicam. I still got my tent stakes attached. The first thing I did is I just took some cordage, and of course there was a tree rather than an overhead branch, but just the base of the tree, about this high, maybe a little bit lower. I tied off one corner of the poncho. Basically just doing a simple plow point. Like so. Then I kind of maneuvered it around a little bit to get the angle that I wanted so that my foot section would be stretched out underneath some fir boughs inside there. So I'll stretch that out now. And I was using just little Coghlan tent stakes with the cordage they come with, so you can see why I covered them up with pine needles. So once I figured out the angle that I wanted everything at under the fir boughs, I went ahead and started staking everything down. Okay. So that was my next step. I got everything staked down. And then once I had it staked down, like I did over there, I just took handfuls of pine needles and brush and whatever I had, and I covered up the tent stakes so that they wouldn't stand out at all. Then I took just a small piece of wood. I cinched the neck down real good on the hood, rolled the hood up a little bit, and then put the piece of wood inside of it. And then twisted it around a few times. So there's absolutely no way water can get in, plus I have a place to tie it off. So I just took some bank line, tied that off. Nothing fancy. And then of course the branch in the fir tree was higher up than this, so I stretched this up to that branch. And tied it off to the overhead branch so I had more room inside. So it was just a basic plow point setup like this is what I had tucked up underneath there. And then again, I got it at the angle so that it was most camouflaged under the tree. Used pine needles and things to cover up the stakes. Took a walk around the outside, places that were a little bit more open than I thought they should be. I laid in a few extra tree boughs that were brought back from ways away from here, so there was no fresh cutting marks anywhere around here. And threw in some more pine needles, some more debris, drug over a little dead log, I guess you would call it, with a branch sticking up, and kind of laid it on one side. And only thing that was left to do that I had not yet done was make either a pine needle bed, a fir bough bed, or put my mat in there, pull my gear, my blanket in, and I would have a tactical shelter made out of Poncho. And just so you know, I just recently did that review on this Actfire poncho from Amazon. Go back and watch the video if you haven't seen it. Again, no special shout out to the material. The material doesn't feel any better or any worse than any other, we'll say, $30 to $60 poncho on Amazon. But the big difference was the measurements. Out of all the ponchos I looked at and the many that I bought, this was the biggest. This one was actually measuring about the same as my old Woodland Camo ones were, my old issue ones, whereas all the other brands I was looking at were up to 9 inches shorter and up to 6 or 7 inches narrower. And doing something like this plow point, that just makes a huge difference, especially if you're a taller person or a wider person. So there it is, guys. Dan at Ochiko Bushcraft. Doing stuff like this out here in practice is fun, and it is good practice. Hopefully I or you never have to do it in real life, but if things ever do go completely sideways, it's a good skill to know. Thanks for checking out the channel, everybody, and for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.